Biomes. In this section, you will learn to describe biotic and abiotic features of Earth's major biomes. In this screencast, we are going to go through and describe the major terrestrial and aquatic biomes. Just to review, a biome is a major regional or global community of organisms characterized by climate and plant life. The number of biomes varies depending on one's interpretation of these different characteristics. In this map, the globe is broken down into 6 major biomes. The first biome we are going to explore is the temperate deciduous forest. We are exploring this biome first because it is the biome that we live in here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This little introductory video will give you a look into a temperate deciduous forest before we explore its major characteristics.
Stretches of temperate forest grow in Eastern Europe, North America, and Asia. Temperate forests grow in areas of warm summers, cool or cold winters, and year-round rainfall, a climate that is also good for people. Many types of trees make up the temperate forest: pine, oak, maple, beech, poplar, elm, birch, ash, and hickory. Because so many of the trees are deciduous, the scene changes with the seasons. In the fall, the trees glow with vivid color. In the winter, small animals remain safely hidden in nests or underground burrows. The lone badger or fox emerges only to hunt for food. The forest returns to life in the spring, when wildflowers bloom, fresh green leaves cloak the trees, and birds fill the air with their songs. Over many centuries, people have cleared away great expanses of the temperate forest for agriculture and settlement.
Temperate deciduous forests are characterized by warm, wet summers and cool, wet winters. Their soil is thick and nutrient-rich, similar to the kind of potting soil you would buy for your garden. Organisms in the temperate deciduous forest should be pretty familiar to you. Organisms like squirrels, rabbits, and deciduous trees who lose their leaves in the winter. The next biome may also look familiar to you. It is the temperate rainforest. This video will let you explore what a temperate rainforest in Washington state looks like.
Before I leave Washington, there's one more fantastic ecosystem that I want to show you. Washington is such an amazing state because within a day, you can travel from the desert, across mountains, to the rugged Pacific coast, and into the temperate rainforest. On the Olympic Peninsula, all the right conditions come together to create this incredible ecosystem. Mineral-rich volcanic ash enriches the soil. It rains up to 15 feet per year here, and mild temperatures rarely drop below freezing. These ideal conditions allow plants to thrive and become huge. Well, we're in North America, and we're nowhere near the equator, so how is it that there's a rainforest here? That's actually pretty simple. Now, air currents in this part of the world, they move from the Pacific Ocean east over land. While that air is over the Pacific Ocean, it becomes saturated with moisture. When it moves east, it hits the coastal mountain range, forcing the air upward into the cold upper atmosphere. So what happens when water gets cold? It condenses. So the moisture in those clouds condenses and rains out and creates a rainforest in this area. Now, rainforests aren't that rare on the West Coast. They occur everywhere from Northern California all the way up to Alaska. Amazingly, there's a desert within only 200 miles of here on the other side of the Cascades. It occurs after the mountains have ringed the passing clouds of moisture. When the clouds float back down the other side of the mountains to lower elevations, it's warm, and the remaining moisture within the clouds expands and stops raining. This is called a rain shadow effect, and it's how most of the world's deserts are created. American temperate rainforests, although not rare in the sense that you can drive to one easily, make up only a tiny fraction of the world's forests and can't be recultivated in a mere human generation if lost.
Temperate rainforests are very similar to temperate deciduous forest in terms of temperature. Both have cold winters and warm summers. The major climate characteristics that differentiates these two biomes is their rainfall. Temperate rainforests tend to get their rainfall in one long wet season, while the deciduous forest gets its rainfall throughout the year. The animals in the temperate rainforest are also similar to the deciduous forest, but many of the animals in the temperate rainforest will migrate to warmer areas during the cold, wet winters. Now that we have talked about the temperate forests, we are going to explore two other temperate biomes, the temperate grassland and the chaparral. This video will introduce the temperate grasslands. This biome you are more familiar with than you think.
Temperate grasslands have a lower biological diversity than the forests. The vegetation is almost exclusively species of grasses, but it can include flowering plants and wild herbs. The soil is especially fertile, but the dry climate prevents larger plants from taking hold. Most precipitation falls as winter snow, which acts as a reservoir for the drier summer months. Grasslands flourish across the globe, but they have different names in different locations. The prairie in the American Midwest, the pampas in Central South America, the steppe in Central Eurasia, and the veldt in South Africa. The grasses can support populations of large herbivores, such as wild horses, pronghorn antelope, and bison. Predators include badgers and coyotes, even hawks and owls. Many of the animals in the grasslands have responded to the lack of trees by burrowing. Prairie dogs and other small animals dig burrows in the rich earth. Even bird species such as mountain plovers, horned larks, and burrowing owls build nests on the ground or under it.
The temperate grassland is what they're describing in the old song Home on the Range. This is literally where deer and buffalo roam. It is characterized by hot summers, cold winters, and more rain than the desert, but not enough rain to support larger plants. The soil is thick and nutrient-rich and can support a wide variety of grasses and flowering plants. Other organisms found on the prairie include mice, prairie dogs, and coyotes. Next, we will explore the chaparral, which is probably new to a lot of you. This video will introduce the chaparral to you. This unique biome requires complete death from forest fires to replenish itself.
Chaparral. Chaparral is part of the temperate shrubland biome, best represented by short woody plants with simple evergreen thick leaves. The name chaparral refers to the evergreen oak called the Spanish chaparral. The thick, hard, waxy leaves of these shrubs are drought resistant and adapt well to the dry climate. Here the winters are cool and rainy, and the summers are hot with very little or no rain. During the winter, precipitation is great enough that it leaches the soil of much of its nutrients. Similar plant communities are found in southwestern North America, Chile, the Mediterranean coast, southern Australia, and the southern tip of Africa. The chaparral ecosystem is found well developed near the coastal areas of the state of California in the United States. The leaves of these plants, such as this sage and manzanita, are often found to be aromatic with flammable compounds. Fires here are frequent. In some plant species, fires stimulate seed germination. After the fires, the dominant shrubs regrow from surviving plant tissue found near the ground. Throughout the year, Lizards, chipmunks, and great horned owls are found within this volatile temperate shrubland biome known as the chaparral.
The chaparral is a very unique biome because it has such hot, dry summers and mild winters. Large plants struggle to grow there. Those conditions, combined with its thin, nutrient-poor soil, are what makes the chaparral need a fire to destroy existing plant life. The fire burns existing plant life, adding nutrients back into the soil, which new plants can use to regrow. Now that we've talked about two biomes that are almost deserts, let's actually talk about the desert. This video will show you what a day in the desert looks like. The desert is a biome which you may know some basics about. You probably know that it is hot, but did you know that the temperature in the desert at night can drop to significantly during the winter months? The soil is very coarse and nutrient poor, so it can't support a lot of plant life. With little plant life also comes little animal life. The organisms that live in these harsh conditions have some very special adaptations that allow them to survive. We will learn more about adaptations in the evolution unit. The next biome we're going to discuss is the savanna. It is also considered a tropical biome, but gets a bit more rain than the desert. This particular video focusing on the savanna describes how the species within this biome are interconnected and rely on one another. Although this video does focus on the savanna, this concept is true for all biomes. Removing one species can have a severe effect on the stability of the entire system.
The African savanna, a place bursting with life. A vast landscape home to a seemingly endless array of plants and animals, from the minuscule to the mighty. But underlying this ecosystem are hidden complexities, many of which we are yet to understand. Each species is vital in maintaining a delicate balance. Insects pollinating, herbivores shaping the landscape, and predators removing the weak. This is a complex web of ever-evolving interactions. With the heat of the summer come the rains. Overnight, the savanna bursts into life. Flowers blossom. A landscape of grasses, thorn bushes, and scattered trees turns green and lush. Water must be conserved, preparing for the harshness of the dry season that will follow. But today, animals gorge on the abundant new growth, each in their own unique way. The bees gather nectar. Unknowingly, they transfer pollen from plant to plant, allowing fertilization throughout the savanna's botanical kingdom. Grazers target the grasslands. Warthogs dig for roots and grubs in the shallow dirt. Elephants browse on trees and bushes. And the giraffe, towering above all, grasps leaves from the tallest trees. Each species playing an essential role in maintaining the African savanna. Watching are Africa's predators, the king of which is the lion. Their role is to regulate prey, removing the weak. Thinning out large herds of animals opens up space and resources for smaller herbivores. Death is an inevitable part of the cycle. Yet energy is not lost. Carcasses release a torrent of vital nutrients back into the delicate ecosystem. Centipedes, worms, and bacteria thrive on these rich nutrient deposits. Termites, always busy, are another major decomposer of the savanna, returning nutrients to the soil as they consume dead plant matter. These nutrients are now ready to enter back into the cycle. Up through the roots of plants they are drawn, shoots sprout, flowers bud, and the trees grow stronger and taller. The cycle continues. Life on Africa's savanna is more than a collection of individuals. All lives are intricately interwoven, where the removal of even one seemingly insignificant species can cascade throughout the ecosystem. It is our responsibility to safeguard the diversity of the savanna, recognizing the importance of each and every species. If we can achieve this, then one of the world's last pristine ecosystems may have a future.
The savanna is a biome most of you are relatively familiar with due to the Disney movie The Lion King. It is characterized by alternating wet and dry seasons and a relatively hot temperature year-round. Its soil is thin and relatively nutrient poor, which is why it primarily has grasses and shrubs along the landscape. A wide variety of animals and insects live in the savanna, making it a very complex biome. Another incredibly complicated biome that you all may be familiar with is the tropical rainforest. We will explore this one next. This video will give you a glimpse into the tropical rainforest.
Rainforests are dense forests made up of many tall trees. They can be found in Central America, Africa, Indo-Malaysia, India, Southeast Asia, New Guinea, and Australia. Almost all of the rainforests lie near the equator. Compared to all other biomes, they exceed with a diversity of animals as well as plants. Rainforests are very important because they supply 40% of the Earth's oxygen and contain more than half of the world's animal and plant species. The temperature of the tropical rainforest ranges from 68 to 93 degrees, and the average humidity is about 77%. The average rainfall is about 100 inches a year, but can get as low as 50 inches and as high as 260 inches of rain a year. There are many different species of animals that live in the rainforest. These include the toucan, Bengal tiger, spider monkey, macaw, the tree frog, and the sloth. In the tropical rainforest, there are also different plant species, such as coconut trees, Bengal bamboo, jambu, mangroves, and strangler figs. The major threat to the tropical rainforest is humans. Companies buy the land, then clear it to build buildings, and then sell the wood from the trees for profit. Another threat to the rainforest are droughts, but this isn't near as bad as the impact humans have.
The tropical rainforest is the biome that everyone typically wants to research because of its complexity and vast number of species. It is characterized by warm temperatures all year round, a long wet season, and a short dry season. Because it is almost always wet, the soil is typically very poor in nutrients. Most of the nutrients get filtered out as the rain falls. Because of this, a lot of the plants have to spread their roots wide to get nutrients from the upper layers of soil. The warm temperatures provides enough energy, however, to support very large plants, which then in turn support a large variety of other organisms. So far, we have explored the temperate and warm biomes. Now it's time to look towards the ends of the earth at some of the coldest biomes. This video will introduce you to the taiga, which is also known as the boreal forest.
The taiga biome is a cold and lonely place. Many people have never even heard the name before, even though it's the largest terrestrial biome on the planet. Taiga is a Russian word that means forest. The taiga is the forest in the extreme north, bumping up to the edge of the Arctic Circle. Any further north and the trees cannot survive. Along this northern edge, the taiga yields to tundra. In the winter, conifers stand as sentinels in a snowy forest cathedral. All is silent, save the wind in the trees and the occasional echo of the gray wolf's howl. As the days grow brighter, the bitter cold of winter eases. Snow melts, trickling into streams that feed roaring rivers lined with gray glacial silt. Migrating birds return to their summer homes, and rivers turn red with spawning salmon. There are really only two seasons here, winter and summer. The summer is only a brief 3 months in most places, but during this period,
the taiga explodes with life. Fire lilies and wintergreens paint mountainsides in whites, vibrant blues, reds, pinks, and purples. Emerging from their winter dens, bears enter the sunlight for the first time with their new young. Having not eaten all winter, they're hungry. After they adjust to their life above ground, they bound down to lakes and rivers to feed on a bounty of salmon. Berries weigh heavily on bushes, providing additional forage for bears and birds. Bald eagles glide high above lakes, rivers, and shorelines, searching for fish swimming below. This is a place where plants and animals live in a delicate balance dictated by the seasons. Despite being so cold and remote, humans have had a profound influence here. Early man likely hunted the woolly mammoth and giant sloth to extinction. But modern man has caused more destruction here in the past 400 years than those hunters did in 10,000. Excessive hunting and trapping has brought to the edge of extinction some of the taiga's most majestic animals. And clear cutting has destroyed great swaths of ancient forest. The taiga biome today, despite appearances, is only a glimmer of what it once was, and we'll need to work quickly if we are to save what's left.
The taiga or boreal forest is a thick, lush forest of evergreens. It is characterized by short, warm, wet summers and long, cold, dry winters. Because the summers are wet and this is the only time the ground thaws, most of the nutrients are filtered out of the soil, making it pretty poor for plants. Evergreen trees, however, are very resilient and can spread their roots wide to absorb as much nutrients as possible. They also keep their green pine needles all year round, which allows them to do photosynthesis all year round for food. Because these lush trees can survive, they are able to support a wide variety of other organisms such as owls, moose, elk, and wolves. The boreal forest is probably the warmer of the three biomes at the ends of the earth. The next biome, the alpine tundra, gets a bit colder. This video will let you explore the alpine tundra.
Alright, Rob Nelson here. We're going to walk you through the alpine tundra.
Alpine tundra.
Now, this is a really special biome for me because I was born here in the mountains of Colorado. This is where I grew up.
Here I am, right at the edge of the timberline.
You know, it wasn't until I was older that I actually learned how special this biome actually is. Now, to understand the biome, though, we're going to have to step back, and we're going to have to put everything in perspective for you. Now, the first thing you have to understand is that this biome, like all biomes, are defined by the dominant vegetation. Now, in this case, it's actually really easy to define because we're looking in a zone that doesn't have any trees. Now, if you notice where I am right now, I'm right at the edge of the alpine tundra because there are a few trees popping up, you know, here and there. But it's up there in the mountains that you find the true alpine tundra. And biomes all fit along a gradient. From deserts to the forest to the alpine tundra, you know, things gradate into each other. And in fact, the alpine tundra is one of the few areas where there's a very sharp line. If you look out at these mountains, you can see tree line very clearly. It's about 11,500 feet. Now, the neat thing about the alpine tundra is they can be found anywhere in the world. In fact, we've climbed mountains on the equator, like in Kenya.
Right now, we're about to hike up Mount Kenya. This is the equator, right here. Southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, northern.
While you start this equatorial climb in the rich forest, it doesn't take long to ascend up into the cooler alpine zone. All of us are slightly freezing right now.
I can't quite stop shivering yet.
Above tree line here, the plants and animals are very different to what we know back at home, yet they do share a lot of similar traits.
This guy's that glitch.
Alright, now we got that out of the way, let's look at some of the adaptations that the plants and animals that live here have that allow them to survive in this habitat.
Plant adaptations.
Alright, now the very first thing that you'll notice is there are no tall plants. Everything is short, and that's to help protect them from the desiccating action of the wind. And in fact, it's really windy right now. Second thing is that most of the plants up here are perennial. That means they're here year after year. It's just too short of a growing season for plants to really rely on trying to grow up from a seedling every single year, so there are very few annuals. The next thing that you might notice is that a lot of the plants around here actually have quite a bit of hair growing on the stems or leaves. And now the hair does two things. First of all, the sun is really harsh and it helps protect the plant, but it also holds in heat, from that plant because we are in a harsh habitat right here.
Animal adaptations.
Now, as far as animals go, there's not a lot of animals that make this their home. There are some animals like the bighorn sheep, some bears, and elk, which actually migrate up into the alpine habitat in the summer months to find food. And of the few year-round residents, we have marmots, which are the larger squirrels, and we have pikas, which are actually relatives of rabbits, even though they have very shortened ears, which help to keep heat in their body in these very cold conditions up here. Now, the alpine tundra in itself is actually a fragile habitat. That's why when you're hiking up here, you want to stay on trails. And areas that are disturbed take a really long time to grow back. So there you have it, the alpine tundra.
The alpine tundra is very rocky and mountainous. Mountain goats and sheep with their nimble feet can traverse this harsh environment. It is characterized by short, cool summers and long, cold winters with very little precipitation. Both the Arctic tundra and the alpine tundra can be considered deserts due to their lack of precipitation. This video will give you a glimpse into the magic within the Arctic tundra. The Arctic tundra is very unique. It has a layer of soil that is permanently frozen. This is called the permafrost. It is characterized by short, cool summers and long, cold winters with very little precipitation. Very few producers can survive in these severe conditions all year, but small shrubs and grasses have adapted to survive. They provide the energy for the rest of the organisms within the biome.